Hey, welcome to the 15-Hour Accountant Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Goody. In this inaugural season of the podcast, we're leveraging AI to help us think through some of the key building blocks to building a hyper-lean accounting firm, working only the hours you want, making a six-figure income. Each episode is based on an original newsletter email written by me and shared with the good folks at the 15-Hour Accountant newsletter list. We then had our AI bot friends here talk us through it. You'll see that they actually do a shockingly good job at helping our brains process the information. Now don't worry, everything published here has been fully vetted and reviewed by my very human ears. Anything glaringly wrong or misleading has been removed, but we did leave in the AI glitches and nuances to laugh a little, keep it real, and feel better about our humanity. Let's dive in and see what our AI friends have to say about this topic.
Okay, so today we are diving deep into sales calls.
All right.
But not just any sales calls.
No.
We are going to be looking at a framework that is specifically designed for a niche business.
Yes.
And this framework comes from the 15-Hour Accountant. So if you've heard of that, that is who we are going to be talking about today.
Yeah, this will be interesting because, like you said, it's a very specific framework for a very specific niche business.
Exactly.
And this is the 15-Hour Accountant.
Yes.
And they actually have a successful business.
Yes.
So it's not just theory. It's like this is something that they actually do.
You actually use.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah, and it works.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
So the 15-Hour Accountant, and that is run by a woman named Erica Good.
Right.
And basically, she has built her entire business model
Yes.
around niching down,
Yes.
which we talk about all the time on this show,
We do. It's so important.
but
And-
also valuing your time.
Yes.
And I think that this is something that we as
Yeah. Like
online entrepreneurs or whatever we want to call ourselves, whatever you do,
It's such an easy thing to overlook.
it is.
Especially when you're starting out.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, you just need to get clients. And you're like,
Yeah, you're just so happy to have somebody who's willing to pay you. You're like, oh, yeah, I'll charge you $2 an hour.
whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want. Sounds good.
But yeah, she really emphasizes like, you need to value your time.
Yes. And that comes through, I think,
Yeah.
in how you approach these sales calls as well. You know,
Yeah.
if you're coming from a place of like, I'm desperate,
Yes.
that's going to be fell on the other end of the line.
100%.
But if you're like, no, I provide a valuable service.
I know what I'm doing.
I'm helping you out. I'm solving a problem that you have.
Exactly.
Like, that's a very different energy going into it.
Yes, and you attract
Yeah.
different clients. And so I think that that's like a really good thing to think about.
And she really structures these calls in a way that embodies that.
Yeah.
You know, like valuing your time is not just about like how much you're charging. It's also about like how are you using your time on these calls
Exactly.
and making sure that every minute is maximized for,
effective.
effectiveness. Yeah.
So let's get into the actual
Yeah.
framework.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so the whole call is about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Uh,
Half an hour. That's it.
that's it. That's all she does.
I like that. That's efficient.
Exactly. And she breaks it up into these sections. So first you have like your ice breaking, and that's only like 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay. So it's quick. You're not spending the whole time
Exactly. So I think a lot of times, people get really caught up.
all right, like 20 minutes of like, how's the weather?
Yes, exactly. And that's not what she does. It's very much like she has some, she'll find out where they're located
Yeah.
and see if like maybe they know somebody.
Oh, interesting. Like building that rapport.
Yes. Building that rapport like immediately.
That's really smart.
Yeah. So that's like the first couple of minutes.
Okay.
And then she goes into expectation setting, which I thought was really interesting. And she only spends like a minute on that. And it's very much like.
Oh, okay. So setting expectations for the call itself.
For the call. Yes, exactly. And it's basically like, this is what we're going to be covering. This is how it's going to go.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, you can get on a call and you're not really sure, like, what's the purpose of this call?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to be getting out of this?
Exactly.
But if you know from the get-go,
This is the goal.
this is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful.
I love that.
It keeps everybody on the same page.
And I think it probably really helps with like not wasting time, because I think a lot of times, things can go on these like tangents.
You get sidetracked.
Yeah.
you go down these rabbit holes, and then all of a sudden your 30 minutes is up and you haven't actually accomplished anything.
Exactly. But if you're both very clear from the beginning, like this is the goal, this is what we're doing.
I love that.
So that's expectation setting. Then, it's my favorite part, she spends 10 minutes on things. Client needs deep dive.
Oh, wow. So she really lets them talk.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And it's all about letting the prospect talk. So like you're
not selling at that point. You're just listening.
You are listening. You are drawing them out.
Gathering information.
Yes. And I think that that is so important, especially with what we were just saying about.
Like really understanding where they're coming from.
Yes.
What are their pain points?
Yes.
What are they struggling with?
And she actually says that this is where she really listens for their pain points and like opportunities.
That makes a lot of sense.
She'll kind of like suss those out.
Because if you can identify those,
Yeah.
then you can really tailor your pitch to address those specific things. It's not just a generic, like, here's what I do.
I'm an accountant. Hire me.
Yeah, it's like, here's how I can solve your specific problem.
You told me you're having this problem. I can solve that.
Yeah, I'm the solution.
I love that.
Much more effective.
So then after that, once she's like really gathered all that information,
Okay.
she goes into showcasing value, which again, another 10 minutes.
Okay, so she spends as much time listening as she does talking.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I like that balance.
I do too.
Because I think a lot of people, when they think of sales, they think of like talking at someone,
Here's why you need to buy my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not that at all.
No, it's about understanding and then providing a solution.
Yeah.
Like you're a problem solver.
And she really emphasizes like tailoring your presentation to what they just said.
Okay.
So it's not like she has, one thing
One size fits all.
that she's like going off of. It's very much like, okay, you said this is how I can help you. I can help you with this.
That's smart.
And another thing she says is she uses a lot of visuals. So whether that's like reports, software demos, because obviously she's an accountant, so she's going to have like, visual things.
Sure, yeah.
But I think that can apply to any business.
Oh, absolutely. People are visual.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we like to see things.
Yeah.
It makes it more real,
Yes.
It's one thing to hear someone talk about numbers. It's another thing to see it in a graph or a chart.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I think that that's like a really good tip. Even if it's not something that you think is like, oh, I don't have anything visual, I'm sure you can come up with something.
You can get creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the very last thing, like the last couple minutes of the call, is strategic next steps.
Okay, so what does that look like?
So it's not like okay, well, here's my, you want to get started, here's my contract.
Right, it's not a hard sell.
Yeah, it's not a hard sell because, again, she's very big on like not every client is the right fit.
Yeah, you're not going to get every client, and that's okay.
Yes.
You don't want to work with everyone. You want to work with the right people.
And I think that that's so important because I think so many times we get caught up in like, oh, I need this sale.
I need this one, yes.
That we're like willing to work with anybody.
Or we're willing to like, bend over backwards and do things that we don't really want to do.
Yes.
Just to get them to sign, and then you end up regretting it later because you're like, oh, this is not the kind of client I want to be working with.
Exactly. And I love that she does this.
Yeah, it's smart.
So basically, strategic next steps, it's either like, okay, I'm going to send you a proposal, or it's, let's get on another call, let's talk about this further. But it's very much dependent on the client.
Tailored to them.
Yes.
I like that.
And what their needs are.
So it's basically like taking all of that information that she gathered in that first, 20 minutes of the call.
This.
And then using that to inform how she moves forward.
Exactly.
That's really smart. I like it.
So I know we just like threw a lot of information at you.
We did. That was a lot.
But I do want to emphasize, like, she's very clear that this is just a framework. This is her framework. This is what works for her. And you need to find what works for you.
Yeah, your flow.
Yeah, exactly.
What feels natural to you.
And what feels good and what feels,
Authentic.
Authentic, yes. And I think that that's just, that applies to everything in business. It's not one size fits all.
You got to figure out what works for you.
So I guess as we're wrapping up here, like, what do you think what's like one thing that you think that you could apply?
From this?
Yeah.
To your own business?
From what we talked about today?
That's a good question.
Or like even just in your communication in general?
Yeah, I love that expectation setting piece. I think that's something that I could definitely be better at,
Even in your personal life?
Oh, 100%. Just being like, hey, this is what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation, or this is what I'm thinking.
This is the goal.
This is the goal. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but hopefully you learned a little something.
I know I did.
True.
Hey, it's Very Human, Erica again. I hope that helped you think through that topic a little more. If you want to hop on the 15-Hour Accountant newsletter that these episodes are based on, come hang out with us. Or check out my free ebook, The 15-Hour Accountant, Anatomy of a $200,000, one-employee, 15-hour-per-week accounting firm, where I pull back the curtain and show you the inner workings of my own firm. I'll leave a link to both the newsletter and the ebook in the show notes. Until next time.